Tonight I went to go see a Thursday night preview screening of Scream 5. There were multiple offerings actually. At first I thought there were only 2, but then after I got there, it looked like they had added more showtimes. One of the offerings had involved a live Q&A with David Arquette and some other people involved in the movie. I decided not to go to that one. I wanted to see the earlier screen time. So that's what I did. And as I'm sitting there watching the movie, I tried to take little notes on my phone. Just things to try to remember to bring up. One of the first things I noticed was the integration of technology for some of the killing scenes, or some of the attack scenes. Well, specifically one, the opening scene, and that is shown in the trailer. I thought that was kind of cool how because it really amped up the pressure. You know, she's trying to lock the door. The killer is opening the door. She uses her phone to lock. I mean, it amped up the tension of that particular scene, which I thought was really I like that build up. Also, it's very clear as you start it, as you continue watching it, as the movie goes on, that this movie, though it does bring back the original characters or the 3 main original characters from the first movie and the subsequent movies, this story is really fundamentally a focus on the new cast. And there is reference multiple times in there, at least twice, I believe. Maybe there's a reference about passing the torch and the new girl, that sort of thing. So while they're in it, the main characters, so Courtney Cox and Neve Campbell and David Arquette, they are all in here and they have decent screen time. They are not the main focus of this story. They supplement it, but it's not about them. It's about the new characters. And I feel like the new characters were decently cast. They all did a decent job, especially the 2 main ones, the older sister and the younger sister. That's the older sister right there. The younger sister is the one that well, I'm not going to tell you who she is. I don't want to give away too many spoilery type stuff, but the girl who plays the younger sister, she's a really good actress. I thought there's a scene that takes place between her and her older sister, and they're talking about certain things with regard to the older sister's past, because as you know from the trailer, this ties back to people that are connected to the first movie, people who are related to the killers of the first movie. And of course, at the end, the motivation for the killings is explained, and it's kind of, quirky and funny the way, not funny, haha, but just like, okay, that's a little clever. But what I was saying is there's a scene between the younger sister and the older sister, and I thought the girl who played the younger sis just did a really, really good job in the emotional acting of that particular scene. Her face looks familiar to me, but I don't know if I've seen her before. I couldn't tell you now where. Also, the girl who played the main actor, she looked a little familiar to me, but I can't place where I might have seen her. Probably just some sort of side. Most of the cast members that it showed were brand new to me, except for the guy with the bleach blonde hair on the top. He looks familiar. Is he the one who... Dang it. He reminds me of the guy who played in the Percy Jackson, but I don't think that's it. I've seen him in something. I kind of get those 2 guys mixed up if that guy right there. Anyway, whatever. I thought they were decently cast, and I felt that there was a good build-up of the story before the main Scream cast was introduced. I mean, it's at least like 30 minutes or more before we see David Arquette, and then of course after that, at some point after that, a bit after that, is Neve Campbell, and then even more beyond that, more time beyond that, and then we see Courtney Cox's appearance in the movie. So there's a decent pathway of story that happens before we get, the reintroduction of these characters that we're very familiar with by now. And there was another cameo that was done in here. When it happened, I it looked to me like maybe there was de-aging done, but it's also possible that this particular person has just aged very well and doesn't really look their age. And I'm not going to say who it is because that kind of gives away some of the plot of the story, which I don't think that particular part of it has been spoiled by a trailer or anything. So I want to stay away from that sort of information. But I thought how that particular character was integrated into the storyline was kind of interesting and pretty well done in my opinion. There was, of course, plenty of comedic moments in here, like there have been in all the Scream films, especially the first film. Like the original film, this one really harkens back mostly to the original film. It's heavily referenced. They do talk about the sequels. Well, okay, so obviously when they're talking about the original film and the sequels, they're really referring to the Stab movies. But we all know they're talking about the actual original, the movies themselves that we know. And it's just very heavily rooted in the original film. The sequels are kind of poo-pooed a bit. And then also there is some relevant comments that are brought up, commentary that's brought up during the course or like there's a scene. And in some of the other scenes also, things are mentioned about movie reboots, the constant like rebooting and remakes of films and how Hollywood's out of ideas, and toxic fandom is referenced, both sort of both anti and pro type of arguments in that regard. Overdone sequels, how to do a sequel right. It's like this film was pretty self-aware, very similarly to how the original one was self-aware. That's what made it so unique and fun, that original movie. It had a little bit of a different twist on the formula that we were used to. It was like they knew the formula, they made fun of the formula. That sort of thing happens here as well. But like all horror movies, almost all horror movies, let me clarify, almost all horror movies, there was one scene where there was just this ridiculous, repetitious buildup of something. It was like a thing would happen and the music would swell and then it was nothing. And then a couple seconds later, same thing, a situation would happen, music would swell and then it was nothing. It was like after about the fourth or fifth time, or I can't remember how many times, but it was a lot. It's like, okay, just get on with it. We know what's going to happen. Just let it happen. But what it was also mentioning is that like most horror movies, this movie certainly does have its fair share of typical stupid stuff. Dumb character stuff, stupid decisions that characters make. I'm not necessarily sure whether some of these dumb things were intentional on the part of the writers, just to sort of, poke holes or make fun of, not poke holes, make fun of that formula that we're used to. I didn't get the feeling that when those things happened, that it was intentional. I just felt like it was maybe your typical sort of weak writing when it comes to horror movies. And of course, when the bad guy gets hurt, shot, and then they're not dead, and then the stupid hesitations that happen when it's like you could finish this person off, but no, there's a hesitation, and then there's a distraction, and then someone gets killed because of it. And it's like, oh, come on. For once I wouldn't, because if this particular thing happened, if the killer was killed off early, then the story be done, right? So, but still, I can't stand that formula that takes place where one of the good guys or one of the potential victims or whatever, you think the killer's dead, and then you gotta make sure, and then you don't act quickly enough, you hesitate. Or when you've got the killer at your mercy, and then the killer starts babbling and pleading, and then you hesitate, and it's just like, I wish, like, I don't want to say for once, because I'm sure this has been done in other films. Don't let them just continue. Just go ahead and off them. Get it over with. Because then that just opens up the doorway for stupid things to happen that shouldn't have happened if the person had just done what they should have done. Like stuff like that. You'll know it when you see it. But it wasn't enough to diminish really my enjoyment of this movie. I felt like it was pretty solid. I thought it was it was well done. Well, that's kind of repetitious. Solid and well done. I feel like it was a pretty good entry in the Scream series. Some people haven't been crazy about the sequels. I've liked all of the sequels. I felt like they've been fairly decent, and I feel like this is as well. This might be one of the more solid ones compared to 2 through 4. I don't know. I felt like there was certainly some touching moments that we were given, surprisingly touching, and especially with regard to the relationship between David Arquette's character and Courtney Cox, and also knowing their real life situation, how they'd been together, it didn't work out. They're still working together, obviously. And so that just kind of gave a little bit more oomph to the emotional aspect of some of those scenes between them. There was one issue at the end, not counting what I've already brought up as far as the formulaic sort of horror things that the characters do that are stupid. But there was an editing issue or something that happened at the end, and well, I've considered it an editing issue. All of a sudden, characters were in other places and you didn't know how they got there. I don't know if that was intentional or if there was just something that had been cut out. I feel like that would have been, it would have been nice to have had whatever might have been cut out in between those times, just to sort of make it not so jarring. But that was, a pretty minor quibble, especially just considering the movie as a whole. I enjoyed it, thought it was good, and I think that the audience in general over the course of the weekend will enjoy it. There was a lot of audience reaction to things. The theater was almost completely full when I went, and so hopefully it will do pretty well. It's still going to be competing with movies like Spider-Man, which may end up remaining or holding on to its number one spot for what is this, like the 4th or 5th week in a row. It wouldn't surprise me because Spider-Man has more worldwide appeal. Horror movies don't necessarily have that same widespread appeal, but I hope that it's going to do fairly well. I believe that it's going to be received pretty well by audiences. I did, after I got out of the theater and I was getting my thoughts together, I did check the scores for this, and it looks like it's got some fairly solid scores across the board. So I think the audiences are going to appreciate it. Hopefully that high score will hold up. I guess we'll see. It's not the best horror movie ever, but it's certainly not the worst, and I feel like it's a worthy entry into the Scream franchise. Have no clue whether it's going to continue. It feels like this would have been a great way to just wrap things up and let it be over with. I don't know that we really need any more Scream movies. And in all honesty, Scream is not Scream without the character of Sidney Prescott, or what's her name? I can't remember Courtney Cox's character's name in here. But it wouldn't really feel like wouldn't really feel like a Scream movie without them. I know they did the Scream TV series. I thought that was pretty fun. I enjoyed it, watched it. I don't know if there's been any more episodes, but I watched everything that they had available at the time. But if they continue with this, I just feel like it would kind of peter out. I don't feel like it's got the legs to hold up without the original cast. So, in my opinion, I think it would be best left alone after this and just consider this the final entry in the Scream saga. But who knows, They'll probably do the very same thing that the characters in this movie were criticizing them for doing. They will continue it with overdone sequels and all that stuff, That is how it is. You know how Hollywood is. But anyway, those are my thoughts on Scream 5. I don't think it's really called Scream 5. It's just called Scream. And then, of course, the year 2022, but that's not part of the title. But they do kind of make fun of that aspect, because in the movie they're talking about Stab 8, and they're like, they don't even call it Stab 8. They should call it Stab 8. They just called it Stab, which is like what they did with this one. They just call it Scream. They don't call it Scream 5. That's not the official title. And so it felt like they were almost picking fun at their own sequel. But anyway, that's it. I think it's all I've got. I can't think of anything else to add to this. And so I think I'm going to wrap this up. And if you guys have seen this, or if you're planning to see it, let me know what you think. I mean, and you know, I don't feel like I'm going to be alone in my appreciation for the film. I'm not wildly in love with it. I've enjoyed the Scream movies, but haven't been like, they're not like, I prefer the Halloween franchise, even though this is a little bit more grounded in reality than, let's say, the Halloween franchise. But you know how horror movies are. They're all kind of, almost all of them are kind of crazy and ridiculous, but I still love them. Okay, I guess that's it. I'm going to wrap this up. See you guys later. Bye.